What's up everyone, Lance Hedrick here, and today we're going to talk about latte art. Now it's been well over a year since my last latte art video, which is a little wild considering how I kind of started this channel, so today we're going to jump straight back into it with a few helpful tips. Yes, it's true, I haven't done latte art in a long time, and I don't really do much at home because I don't drink milk beverages. So if you haven't already discovered this channel, check out Emily Bryant, a really good friend of mine, someone I go way back with. She does quite a bit of latte art on her channel. But anyway, let's continue on with this video. There are a lot of times where people are asking me to critique their latte art and they don't even have the fundamentals in place in order to actually achieve latte art. Even if they had a 1 in a million pour, it wouldn't work because their fundamentals are simply not there. These are 3 tips that should help you approach latte art in a much more effective manner so that you know everything that you have in front of you is going to get you to success. The first one is Spout Proximity. Now I know if you've watched my past videos, this is something I have harped on many times. First thing to pay attention to is the cup that you are using. You want something with a wider lip, more shallow base, and ideally you want it to curve so that you can have more of that flow going into the cup without it hitting against a back wall and causing distortions throughout. So when we look at the mouth of this cup, it's about 7 centimeters. The height is closer to about 10 centimeters. If you use Pythagorean's theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, the surface area when we tilt it is going to be even bigger than the mouth of this cup. As we're tilting it back to parallel to the ground, that surface area is going to shrink, therefore shrinking our design and making the design a lot more difficult. In addition to that, as we're tilting it, that foam is going to thicken up as that surface area is getting smaller, and it's going to make art really difficult. The diner mug is going to be a really difficult thing to really pour into. These are obviously the best, something that's like a bowl-shaped cup. As you can see, you can get inside it really easily with your pitcher, you get really great spout proximity, and you're good to go. The foam is the least dense part, so that foam is going to stay as close to the top as possible, regardless of how well homogenized our milk is post-steaming. You're wanting it to dive out of the pitcher, and that more dense part of the milk is going to sink, and the other part is going to skate on top to give us the latte art. Whenever I'm trying to pour this, look how little I can tilt it before water comes out, which means my spout proximity is not very close. I can't really get this all the way down to the liquid, but we use a bigger volume, same amount of water inside. Now watch how much I can tilt this pitcher. Look at this. Which means I can get all the way to the back of this cup in order to have spout proximity, which opens up a lot more designs. So having a bigger volume pitcher can easily be a hack where you can get better spout proximity automatically. It wasn't until about 2018 when I switched to the smaller pitcher to get a little bit more precise with my wiggles. The bigger the pitcher, the more flow you tend to get out of the pitcher, which is great. At that time in the competition scene, there's a specific style that was being looked for. So anyway, the majority of the competitions I've won throughout my career was with this teeny tiny little pitcher. You can do incredible things with small pitchers, you just need small cups with them, right? For instance, this was the cup I always used. It's about 6.7 or around 215 milliliters, and I would use this pitcher. I would have this pitcher filled about here, just over the bottom of the lip, and that was more than enough with a double shot of espresso to pour, and I was able to have really great control. I could have gotten better spout proximity with a bigger pitcher, yes, but once you're already to the point you're dipping your spout into the beverage, I think that it's good to go. But it's an immediate hack if you're having issues getting that close to the surface. Getting a bigger pitcher can really help you there. Obviously, all of this is taken for granted that you already have good milk texture. You'll get a lot better latte art with good espresso, but without good textured milk, you're not getting trash. You heard me. Let's move on. The next step is going Floward. Is there not in there? This is something I see a lot of people struggle with. They get all excited, they're pouring their design, and they start pouring. They get scared though. They get scared and they stay at the back of the cup right here, and they're pouring slowly. And what happens is they're not really getting a design that fills the cup. Instead, they're getting some lines, but then it turns into a blob, and then it turns into an onion instead of a heart because they're staying at the back of the cup. Because there's more foam in your pitcher at the beginning than in the cup, as you're pouring, that ratio begins to shift. What's in the cup becomes more and more stiff. If you have something stiff in the cup, you need to pour more quickly in order to counteract it to make this more malleable. You have to pour at more of an angle as it goes because you're losing volume, but you also must increase the flow rate throughout the pour in order to continue to push the design throughout the cup and in order to allow for that contrast and for that color infusion to overtake the design. You're forcing brown to be enveloped inside of that white line. It's like they're swimming in the espresso and they're grabbing color and they're throwing it into themselves. So those white lines are coming and throwing brown into the design, but you have to be pushing forward with a heavy flow rate in order to allow this to happen. If you stay back and go side to side, those white lines want to kind of come together and they just congeal and look like a blob. If you have crap milk texture, it's not going to matter if you go forward because you're still going to have just some dry foam heaping out on top, and you've got a cappuccino, okay? Don't drink it after 11. So, come on now. The last thing is we're actually going to talk about the espresso. I said that milk is the given, and espresso doesn't matter as much as milk in the grand scheme of things. You need to have really nice milk texture. Now, with espresso, it will be a lot easier if you have a really viscous espresso as your base. If it's really dark and a couple of days off roast, it may be too bubbly and gassy. You swirl it, you have like chunks of crema. If that's the case, you're gonna need to sit there, tap your cup, swirl the mess out of it to really break that up. But the lighter the coffee, the thinner the crema, the less viscous it is, the more you're going to have to rely on incredible milk texture. Because essentially, the less crema you have, the more you're relying on your own milk foam for the latte art. When you have really thick crema, that is already a foamy, bubbly surface. That is what essentially we're carving our art into. If you have next to no crema, because you have a really aged coffee or a really lightly roasted coffee where there's not much CO2 production, you're going to have to pour enough milk in there at a specific texture in order to set your own base, and you're essentially pouring into colored milk, as opposed to a crema that sits on top of your milk. We are taking our crema, our espresso in here, and we're pouring milk in order to homogenize the milk foam with the crema foam. The crema foam has a lot of surfactants in it and has some hydrophobic tendencies that allow for this glossy texture that is really nice to kind of push designs into, and it holds its form really well. When you don't have that, you don't have those surfactants, you don't have that thick foam layer from the crema to integrate your milk into, then you're essentially just coloring your milk by pouring it into a cremaless espresso, and you're making the design milk in milk. Just one of the milk it happens to be colored and the other one is not yet colored. A shorter shot means you're going to have a higher concentration of coffee to water. If you enjoy your coffees like at a 1-to-3 ratio, you're going to have a very watery espresso, and it's going to be much more difficult to pour into it, especially because a lot more of your cup volume is taken up with thin espresso instead of thick milk. Another way is to use more freshly roasted coffee. The fresher the coffee roast, the more gassy it is. Even really lightly roasted coffees could have a thick, syrupy base of espresso if you pull like a ristretto. It just needs to be really fresh so that there's a lot of that CO2 in there. Another tip is to use some sort of sauce at home. If you like to add chocolate sauce or something to your latte, well, using that as your base can really help thicken up your canvas to have a higher viscosity and to really improve your latte art. So if you're someone that enjoys mochas at home, using a sauce or something that could essentially artificially thicken up your canvas, that's a great idea. You can also do something like cocoa powder. Cocoa powder is something that once you pour it on, you swirl your espresso, it'll give you kind of like that faux crema top where it's giving you something to really pour into to maximize your contrast, but also to give a little bit of the surface tension that you might be missing without the crema. Working on the viscosity of your base is going to really increase your capability with latte art. Now again, it's not a necessity, but these are 3 tips that I think will greatly improve what you're doing at home. So often we get stuck in the weeds of ripple, 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 push, 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 all of these things, but we're not thinking of the absolute basics, which could be massive game changers for us. One, of course, is getting better spout proximity. So maybe that's changing your cup. Maybe that's tilting more because you weren't tilting enough to get liquid at the edge before starting your design. Or maybe it's using a bigger pitcher so that you can tilt even more before the milk comes out of the pitcher. Maybe you need to work on going forward. You got to push that flow, ever increasing flow as you go forward. I know it's scary. You may think you're going to spill, but you have to do that in order to expand your design and to really incorporate that brown into the design. And then of course, finally, we need to work on the viscosity of our canvas because without some nice viscosity, it's going to be a lot more difficult, though not impossible, to get really nice designs, especially if you want a lot of intricate designs like you see on Instagram or wherever. Those people are using super dark roast, usually with some Robusta in it that's really darkly roasted and really fresh. So they're using essentially concrete in order to pour their latte art. Sorry it took so long to do another latte art video. I even wore my little latte art shirt to commemorate. Maybe we should make shirts like this for some merch. Let me know down below. But anyway, if you wouldn't mind, hit the like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Check out my Patreon. We got a lot of cool stuff going on. Eventually this will be on there for a competition for someone to win for free. But anyway, so just remember, as you're going Floward, that everyone deserves a chance to fly. Everyone deserves a chance to fly. And if I'm flying solo, at least I'm flying free. Idina Menzel. Anyway, that's enough for me. Hope you brewed something tasty today, and cheers.